Hi all, today we're going to carry on looking at Pythagoras theorem and we're going to mix it up and look to find the long sides and the short sides today. So you're going to look at both these examples here, and in each of these examples one of them is finding the long side and the other is finding the short side. Remember how we started each of these questions? Each time we always drew our sketch, so make sure you're doing that in your books when you start doing these out of the book. After that, we identify our long side, and remember the long side is always the side that is opposite the right angle. The other two sides are my short sides. Now, once I've got my triangle labelled, I make sure that I write down Pythagoras theorem, and that is the long side squared equals the short side squared plus the other short side squared. Next, all I need to do is make sure I put all the numbers into the question. So trying to find the long side, I have 10 squared, and my other short side is going to be 4 squared. Now we're at that point where we can start thinking about using our calculator. 10 squared add 4 squared, we can type that straight into our calculator. So L squared must be 100 add 16, which is going to be 116. Now, remember, in this question, we have L squared. We want to identify the length, not the length squared, the length. So to do that, we are going to do the opposite of squaring, and the opposite of squaring is square rooting, and square root 116. So, into my calculator, square root of 116, I get an answer. That tells me 10.7703, and it goes on for quite a bit, but we want to make sure our answer is rounded to one decimal place. So the answer should be the long side is 10.8. I need to make sure I'm doing my rounding. Remember, putting your units. In an exam, they're probably going to have a space to write that down, but you need to make sure you are putting those units in whenever you are dealing with a question in your book. Now, other example. The other example looks at finding a short side. So, first steps again, label your triangle. Sorry, there we are. So, long side's opposite the right angle, and the other two sides are the short sides. So, I start Pythagoras theorem this time. I'm not going to write it down as long side squared equals. I'm going to start with, I want to find a short side squared. And if you remember from yesterday's lesson, to work out the short side, we are going to take the long side and subtract the other short side squared. So short side squared equals long side squared, take away short side squared. Now, let's put the numbers in the question. So we have s squared equals the long side squared, which is 15, the hypotenuse, minus 13 squared. Again, at this point now, you are thinking about using your calculator. So 15 squared, take away 13 squared, and equals, and that tells me I have my short side squared is equal to 56. However, that's the square of my long side. I want to find what the long side is, so I need to undo the square. So the opposite of squaring is square root. So I do the square root of 56. Again, this is where you're going to need your calculators. The square root of 56 is, it tells me 7.483314, and it goes on a little bit, but we want to round it to one decimal place. So 7.48, the 8 is telling the 4 it should be going up, so the short side should be 7.5 centimeters. All right, so look at those models. Those models are in the correct form. You should be thinking about the way you are setting them out all the time. You're making it easy for yourself, going from step to step. Make sure you've got your calculator handy. All right, now other questions. Now, when you get onto some trickier ones, you might end up with something that could look like this, and it's a wordy question. All right, so there's a little bit of problem solving in here, so you've got to be thinking about what you are going to do first. I'm going to make sure I get my diagram drawn. every time we want to have that sketch drawn. Now you're going to use a pencil and a ruler. I'm going to have to try my best to get nice straight lines on it. So it says in this question, a guy rope is attached to the top of a tent pole. So I've got a guy rope there. There's my rope. And it's at the top of a tent pole there. And it says at a height of 1.5 meters. 1.5 meters above the ground. And to a tent peg, 2 meters from the base of the pole. So from the base of the pole to the start of the guy rope, it is 2 meters. And it says how long is the guy rope. So this long side there. Now I'm going to label my triangle. There's my right angle. My long side is the guy rope, the L. And these two here are going to be my short sides. So remember, we've got our sketch. I now need to make sure I write down Pythagoras' theorem. L squared is equal to S squared plus S squared. And in this question, we are trying to find the long side. So now, again, I'm going to change the letters into numbers. So I've got L squared is equal to 1.5 squared plus 2 squared. Your calculator's going to come in handy now because you're going to type all the numbers into your calculator. 1.5 squared, add 2 squared, and I'm going to press equals on my calculator, and I end up with 6.25. 6.25. So L squared is equal to 6.25. However, I need to find out the length of the rope. So remember, the opposite of squaring is square root in. So I'm going to do the square root of 6.25. And when I do the square root of 6.25, square root 6.25, the answer should be the length of the rope is 2.5. And in this case, the measurements are in meters. So the answer to that would have been 2.5 meters. Now that's a problem solving question. So there's going to be words you are going to need to draw your sketch before you start. Triangle might not be drawn for you. So it's really, really important that you get that correct. Now, what I'm going to do is you are going to have a go at the ones from the book. And hopefully you'll get on with those no problem at all. All right? Goodbye.